Welcome to the ADHD Family Summit. My name's Lara. I'm your host, and I'm really excited to introduce you to my beautiful friend, Allison Solomon. She's an ADHD parent coach. And if you already know Allison, you'll know why I love her so much. She says it like it is and in a way that we can relate to. Welcome, Allison. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Laura. I'm so excited to be here and to be sharing with your beautiful community.
Earlier today, you and I were chatting about executive functioning and how important it is that teachers are supporting our kids with executive functioning at school. And you shared that at one of your presentations, a lot of the teachers didn't even know what it was. And I know parents who are also like new to the ADHD journey, they may not know what it is either. So before we dive into our discussion around executive functions, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story. And then we'll talk about what executive functions are in a way that you can support your child with this.
So, I am a mom to three incredible human beings, all who have ADHD. I'm also the mom who got given a diagnosis, told my child was ADHD, and given a whole bunch of books to read. And I was the mom who sat in the car park, tears rolling down my eyes, not knowing how my son was going to survive because nobody knew how to help him. He was the great kid, but and I didn't know how I was going to help myself. And I watched as the light went out in my son's eyes. I watched as people looked at ADHD as a behavior lens, through a behavior lens. And I watched as people just didn't know what to do with him. And I eventually, after many afternoons of crying, decided this is it. I am not going to watch my son fall apart. And I took it upon myself to become the expert and know everything there possibly was, really out of a survival for both me and my child. And fast forward to where we are now, I have a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and an 18-year-old, all with ADHD, all with learning disabilities. And it hasn't been an easy journey. I often say to parents, I've been to hell and back, but we have learned so much along this journey. And I'm just happy to share what I've learned and to help other parents going through this, because I don't want any other parent to sit in that car park, tears rolling down their eyes and thinking, how on earth are we going to get through it? Because there are so many wonderful strategies out there that will get you through, and your child deserves them and your child will shine. That's just how it works out.
I love how you've supported your boys through this and you've made yourself the expert so that you could give your kids what they needed. And one of those things that our kids need is support with executive functioning skills. I think of ADHD as a disability or, yeah, like a learning disability in executive functioning. Well, what the heck is executive functioning?
But I think that's a beautiful question. So we know, what are executive functions? So executive functions are the skills we need to begin and finish a task. So let's just think about the poor child who comes home and the mother says, start your homework, or the dad says, start your homework. So what does the kid have to do? First of all, they have to have task initiation skills. They have to be able to start the task. Now, we know that kids with ADHD cannot start tasks that are boring or repetitive. So strike one. Then they have to be able to plan and know what it is that they need to do. Well, our kids don't use planners and don't even know the passwords to get into Google Classroom. Strike two. Now they have to use their organizational skills, so they have to have the right materials, which of course they never bring home, and then they have to organize their thoughts, which is another train smash. Now they have to manage their time. They have to be able to pace themselves, because if they've got soccer practice in an hour and they've got all this homework to go through, they need to know what pace. Then they've got to use their working memory. They've got to recall what they learned at school, and we know that ADHD at its core is a deficit of working memory. Then they've got to manage their emotions. Like, who the hell wants to do Romeo and Juliet when you can be playing on the Xbox? So they have to use all of these skills. And in our kids, we know for a fact that these skills are impaired. We know that kids with ADHD have a 30% delay in the front part of the brain, the part of the brain responsible for reason and logic and where all the executive functioning skills sit. So what happens to these poor kids is they are literally asked to lift a 50-pound weight, and their brain can only hold a 5-pound weight. And because no one is spotting and no one is helping them, in order to get to the 50-pound weight, they have only one language, and that is behavior. So what happens to our children? They are not the behavior problem. But if I'm sitting in class and I can't get started on the task and I have no idea what to do, what am I going to do? Well, I got two choices. Either I can ask my friend next to me, what do I do? Then I'm the disruptive, rude child. Or I can just sit there and then I'm just labeled as lazy and unmotivated. And to be honest, for some of our kids, that's an easier label because then I don't get scrimped at in class. And so this is what is happening. So to everybody, it looks like a behavior challenge. But when we understand it is not a behavior challenge, it is a child with an executive functioning skill deficit. And if we would focus on supporting that deficit, both in our homes and at school, we wouldn't have behavior problem children.
This is brilliant. First of all, the visual of the 50-pound weight and they're only able to lift 5, that visual is really beautiful and that makes it really clear to understand. And as parents, as educators, it's our job, like you said, to spot them, right? To give them the tools and the support so that they can lift up that weight, so they can be at an even playing ground to their peers because they are delayed by 30%.
And so many of the calls I get is parents who are saying, well, the teacher's complaining that my child can't focus, and the teacher is complaining that my child is dysregulated. And I'm like, no, 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 that's the behavior. But that's not the problem. It's not that they can't focus, it's that they can't get started. So if we keep on having these discussions around behavior and interventions around behavior and behavior charts, none of it is going to help because
Oh,
ADHD is a skill deficit. So we have to be building skills. And I just want to say that, parents will say to me, well, Allison, isn't it the responsibility of the teachers? And I'm going to tell you that in fairness to teachers, they are not taught these skills. So we can have like a massive pity party and say how awful it is. And then as parents, we just need to say enough. We need to be supporting our kids in our home by teaching them executive functioning skills. We need to be supporting teachers by sharing with them strategies because when we do this, everybody rises up. When you advocate for your child, you're not just advocating for your child, you are creating a ripple effect and it benefits everybody. And that's how we create change. And we, the parents, are in this unbelievable position of power to be the change.
okay. So when we're focusing on the behavior, to me, I like picture this iceberg, what we see in the classrooms, the child who is disruptive, the child who doesn't get their work done, the child who loses their homework, the child who's handsy in lineup and pushing and all of those things. And we tend to focus on the behavior because we don't want them behaving that way at school. We want that behavior to stop. It's disruptive. It's disturbing other kids. It doesn't feel good. And then, well, why don't we do a behavior chart?
Right. Because at the end of the day, we want to force compliance. We want these kids to be independent, to be able to do what their peers do. But let's go back to that graphic. You are asking them to lift a 50-pound weight that all of their peers can do because they have those skills and they can only lift a 5. So they can't be independent yet. But when we support them, then we can teach them skills so that they can become independent. So it really is a major mindset switch for parents as well as for educators. How are we supporting these students to become independent instead of saying, I need you to be independent, and if you're not independent, I'm going to punish you because that's going to make you independent. And that's the shift.
Yes. And that is so key because, we want you to do XYZ behavior. You're not. We're going to take away recess. We're going to phone your parents. You're going to lose time on the Xbox. Or once you do this, get all this work done, then you can have, we have to get underneath. We've got to support their deficits. So what is one thing that parents can do right now to build those executive function skills for their child?
Yeah. So I think that one of the most important executive functioning skills is time management. And I think that we see a lot of impulsivity, a lot of dysregulation because our kids don't know where they sit in time. It's not that they don't know how to tell the time. It's that they actually cannot estimate the amount of time for a task to take place. So this is why in the younger grades, we see kids blurting out and pushing in. And it's not because they're narcissistic. It's because this child genuinely believes that this task or that it's going to take 5 hours for them to get out the door or 5 hours for the teacher to call on them. So that's why they push in. And this is why we come home and homework is a battlefield because the kid looks at the list, goes, oh my gosh, this is going to take 20 hours. I want to play on the Xbox. And now the kid is dysregulated. But if we would just teach the child to see where they sit in time, if we would just make time visible, and there's so many different tools that parents can use, and you're going to have to play around and see what tool works best for your child. Is it an analog clock? Is it a time timer? Is it a sand timer? Is it a visual calendar? I don't know what works for your child, and you're going to have to experiment. But when the child can see when they sit in time, it helps to decrease their stress level. It helps to spot them so that they now can do the task. So, folks, my number one executive functioning skill you must be focusing is on time management.
Beautiful. And you're actually offering a gift to everybody in the audience, an executive function gift. Can you tell us a little bit more
Yeah.
about that?
So what I've created for everybody is like a mini toolkit where I've identified the key executive functioning skills and I've given you action steps that you can use in order to help your child learn that skill.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And for everybody who has the VIP All Access Pass, and if you don't, it's not too late to grab it, there will be more about executive functions skills and tools inside your action workbook. And I'd love for everybody to come into the ADHD Village, look for Allison's thread. Let us know what resonated with you today. Allison, you have such a way of like just getting to people's hearts and getting them to be like, yes, 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 and empowering parents. Like we can step in our power and share what we're learning with the teachers so we can work together to support our kids. So let us know in the Facebook group, what did you learn from Allison today? Maybe what questions do you have? Let us know, once you download her free gift, like what strategy did you try out? What tool do you like? Let's just get the conversation going inside the ADHD Village Facebook group. And when you do that, you'll be entered into a draw to win all sorts of prizes, including a scholarship to Parenting is Easy. Allison, I know you said, what did you say? I've been to heck and back. Like, yeah, this is not to minimize the parenting challenge. I know I've got two boys with ADHD plus, and my ADHD, but what it is it's training our brains. Like, let's look for the ease in parenting. Go
And I
ahead.
think,
Yeah.
Laura, this journey is a lot harder than perhaps it needs to be because we are not taking steps as parents to, I always say to parents, if you had a child with diabetes, you would know everything under the sun about insulin. You would know everything. But yet we have a child with an invisible disability and we don't put the same effort into finding the information. And I think it does a huge disservice to our children because just because you can't see my ADHD doesn't mean it doesn't exist and doesn't mean I shouldn't be respected for it. So I really think as parents, so much of this journey is really getting our kids to own their ADHD, for them to understand how their brain works, for them to be able to self-advocate. And those steps start with the parent who gets the information, who shares it with their children, who's going into the school, who's advocating, who's modeling, and who's helping their children to actually see that having ADHD is not a curse. It comes with unbelievable gifts. And yes, it comes with challenges. And there's nothing wrong with you. And own your ADHD and scream it from the freaking rooftops. Because so what? ADHD is not your story. It is just part of your story. And when you can empower your child to say in a conversation, hey, I have ADHD. I may not look at you when I speak. Please don't think I'm being rude. This is who I am. Boy, you've arrived.
Oh, I love this. I love this energy. And that's why, like, pediatricians recommend parent coaching. Get a parent coach to help you because these are skills. Like, parenting is a skill too. And we basically parent from how we were parented or what we've learned from society. But you have a child who requires more patience, more skills, more support. So
So
you need
true.
that training.
We know that traditional parenting, punishment, rewards, consequences doesn't work for our kids. All it does is make causes disconnection between parent and child. It causes burnout with the parents, and it simply causes a child to be ashamed of who they are. So we know traditional parenting doesn't work.
Allison, if you could go back in time to that younger version of yourself, that sweet mama sitting in the parking lot with the tears rolling down your face, what do you wish you could have told yourself then that you know now?
I wish I would have said to myself, don't look at him for what he can't do. Stop focusing on his weaknesses because he has the most incredible strengths. Parent the strengths, figure out strategies to help with the weaknesses, but look at your child not as what he can't do, but what he actually can. And when I made that switch 3 years into this journey, everything changed in my home because my child is not broken and he doesn't need to be fixed. And he has all of these incredible strengths. And when we label it and when we focus on it, we build self confidence. And it is with self confidence that then you can go and teach all of these skills. But if you've got a child who believes that they're broken, if you've got a child who has no self esteem, you cannot teach skills.
Allison, I've got like goosebumps from that. That is really beautiful. So parents start looking at your child's strengths. And in our Facebook group under Allison's thread, why don't you tell us like what is your child good at? What's really special about your child? What's a unique skill that they have? Like, are they funny? Are they creative? Like, are they able to focus their attention on something they love so much, like soccer or dance, and they've really excelled in it? Like, imagine if there was something that you were not good at and everybody was always focusing on getting you better at that thing. Like, that would feel so yucky, but celebrating your strengths and then getting in those supports for the weaknesses, like, that's the way to go for sure. Allison, in the ADHD village, we have a saying, find your people, love them hard. I'm so grateful that I found you. I'm grateful that you're a part of the village. I love that I have you to connect and collaborate with, especially since your boys are a little bit ahead of mine. So I can ask you what's coming next.
Well, good luck. Hold on tight. You think the teen years, wait until I go to university. It's a whole nother game.
Where can people find you, Allison?
Yeah. So the best place to find me is on Instagram, which is at Allison Lee Solomon, or you can find me on Facebook. I have a private Facebook group called the ADHD Mamas Inner Circle Academy, and you're welcome to join. And those are the best places to find me. And if you really have any questions, just drop it in the chat in Laura's group, in her thread, and I'll be happy to answer whatever comes up for you after you've watched this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll see you on the next interview, and I'll see you inside the ADHD village. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.